So where are you now?
I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Do you know where that is? Yeah. When this whole NFT stuff started to like kind of like blow up a year ago, I knew that I always wanted to make things that were sort of like a mix between physical and digital, similar to the like human One Piece. And my brother is a mechanical engineer that he was working for Boeing. And I was like, oh, you should, quit your job and come work with me on like crazy, like, future art robot stuff and like crazy stuff. And so he did. And so now we have a team of I think probably 10, 12 people. He runs more of the sort of like business side of things and the engineers and that. And then I just kind of work more like closely with him. And then he kind of helps make the ideas happen.
And you are the creative part?
What's up?
You are the creative part?
The direction and sort of like what we're doing is coming from me, but it's sort of like these are now obviously sort of engineering and will continue to be more and more sort of ambitious projects that I couldn't just do by myself. So I need kind of like a team to sort of like execute these ideas. And so he's able to sort of like manage the team and all that stuff that I don't have to.
When you
I can just focus on.
When you are speaking, the screen is shaking.
Sorry. When he's the one that can kind of like, sort of help actually sort of like execute these things. And so I can just kind of focus on like artwork.
So what did happen last March, after last March and recently? One record after another, very good prices. What changed in your life and in your creativity?
Quite a bit changed, I would say. And I'm still kind of trying to like process everything, to be honest. But yeah, it definitely sort of the kind of, when this whole thing sort of started, it's funny because as the art world moved more digital, I moved more sort of physical and started making things. I was 100% digital before, and then I started making physical work that I never would have sort of like thought of making before.
Why?
But I think you're just going to really see sort of a mix of those two worlds. And I think you're going to see them meet in the middle in some really interesting ways, which to me is really exciting. So the type of work that I was doing changed somewhat. Obviously, I'm still doing the everydays, but I'm also doing a lot more sort of actual kind of like physical work as well.
But what changed in your brain?
In terms of what?
In terms of you were kind of low profile digital artist and suddenly.
No, that's the thing that I think people don't understand is I actually had millions of followers before this, and I had signed a bunch of autographs and stood in line and seen people freak out meeting me like before this. I just wasn't known by the traditional art world. And so I was actually quite well known before this, just not the traditional art world.
And making money already?
Oh yeah, like I had done like in 2019, the Louis Vuitton like took the everydays and put them on their like spring line on like the like shirts, and like I was doing like, I was probably like that.
For Louis Vuitton? It was before the record price?
2 years before that. They took the everydays and put them on the like front of the shirts. Like they had like, I'll send you pictures. They like did like the entire like spring line was like a bunch of pictures from the everydays.
So you were making a lot of money already?
Not 69 million, but I was making very good money. Like I was the most popular sort of digital artist before this, but the most popular digital artist was still completely unknown to the traditional art world because there was no way to collect my work. But like I had already like done talks all over the world and sort of like, it was just a different sort of like sphere. Yeah. I had done the videos for the last couple Super Bowls, like big projects.
And since when can we say that you are famous?
What do you mean?
When came the success? On what year?
It was sort of slowly growing over the last kind of like 10 years that I was slowly sort of like gaining a following. There wasn't until this moment, the NFT thing happened. There wasn't one sort of like big thing that kind of like it sort of made me popular. I was just like little things like continually sort of like growing in sort of like exposure and gaining more of like a following online, which was leading to sort of better and better sort of jobs coming in. But all of the jobs were like freelance work. It was all kind of client work for a client, because again, there was no way to collect what I did without those sort of like NFTs. And so all of the projects that I did were, you know, Apple and SpaceX and, you know, Sony and all these like very good projects. And I'd done concert visuals for Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande and, you know, One Direction and all these bands.
But since this date, since last March, something changed in your brain in a way, because now you want to make physical art. No one says that in traditional art, but you want to make things physical, right?
Well, I think we still live in the physical world. And so I think there's ways to sort of bridge the gap between something that purely just exists on your phone or on a computer screen, and make it so that there's a more interesting way to experience that art. Because I think if you're just looking at something on your computer screen, the same place you close your email and then you pull up a $5 million piece of artwork, it's kind of like, I don't know. That's just not the like
not enough.
That's not the place to look at it. You're not going to like sort of appreciate it and think about it in the same way, because you just got done pulling up your email on the same screen. And then you're looking at, you know, this $5 million piece of artwork, and then a text message pops up in front of it. And it's like, what the, like, that's not
it's disgusting.
That's not like, we can do better than that. I think there's room to do better than that. And so I think, and there's a way to have digital art be more of a passive, just part of your life. Like that picture behind you, you don't sort of choose to look at it. It's just part of your environment, and it's kind of subtly affecting your life every day. And so that's not how it is with digital art right now, because it exists almost entirely on a computer. You have to choose to look at it. You choose to click on it and choose to look at it. It's not just passively part of your life. And I think that's not how it will be in the future. I think digital art will be like any other piece of artwork, where it just passively exists as part of your life. And you look at it, you know, when you walk by it, or you look at it and it's part of your environment, and it's just subtly sort of like affecting how you think and how you live your life.
And what do you think about, after we speak about the art really, but what do you think about the NFT art market?
I think there is a lot of, I think it's very early. I think there is a lot of, that's the thing. I think NFTs are, I think they're going to be that people will see they're far more than just art. And so I think there's a lot of things that are not really art that are being sold as NFTs right now, and that will continue. And I think in the future, I honestly think NFTs will be like email. Like, it will just be this technology that is used for a bunch of just boring crap that just sort of is something that you have and everybody has them, and most of them are not art. That's just one use case for it.
Yes.
And so I think we're still very, very early there, but I think, you know, people are excited about it, and I think people are continuing to use it in new and exciting ways. But I think, just like with the regular art market, people need to be careful and sort of recognize that not all of this is going to sort of hold value over a long period of time.
How to make the difference between an art NFT and NFT? Why is, for example, your everyday piece art and not just NFT?
Well, I think it was, I mean, again, everybody can have their own definition of art. To me, that is sort of something that existed before NFTs even, like, again, I started this before there was even any blockchain, before Bitcoin. And it was just art. Like, but there was no way to sort of like own it in a way that felt native to that actual medium. And
but
so
is it conceptual for you? Is it a concept? The idea of making something every day, like a calendar of your life?
Yeah, that part of it is very much sort of like, there is a conceptual part of it, and it's something that I think is, I think as people step back and look at that piece, I think it will actually be something that is very representative of this time, because the piece itself is so hyper dense with information. Like, nobody, probably almost nobody's actually looked at every single image in that 5,000 days piece, because it would take you forever. And if you have looked at it, you've just glanced at it for a second.
Yeah, but what is the difference between illustration and art after all? Why isn't it only illustration if you don't really consider the conceptual part?
I guess, what would you say is the difference between illustration and art?
Illustration goes with the text, but if you have a precise global idea about what you want to do and you take it as a concept, it becomes something else. It's not only an illustration about the news, about your mind every day. It's something different. It's a more thought and global project.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's what I think it is. It's sort of like, it's something that it was sort of like, each piece exists on its own as a piece of art. Like, I wasn't doing it to illustrate some idea each day. Like, most of I mean, honestly, most of them are abstract. I think people are focusing on what the pieces look like over the last 2 or 3 years, but most of them are purely abstract works that are similar to like an abstract expressionist thing. There's no people in them. It's literally just about color, form, composition. That's it.
But for me, there's a big difference between the work that was sold for a record price and human one, which is a revolution. And I was amazed by it, even in the form of it.
I mean, there is a big difference, but I think people will come to understand over time the 5,000 days as being just like any other piece of artwork. It was a image that took a very, very long time and a lot of effort over literally 13 years to produce that one image. And it very much was a concept that, sort of has a cohesive thought behind it. And I think people will see that as representative of the amount of the onslaught of media that we now have. There is just an insane overflow of media that we are all present to and sort of like vying for our attention. And it's so hard to even discern what this is. And I think when you step back and look at the piece, it literally just looks like noise because you can't see any of the individual pictures. And I think that's very representative of the time we live in now too.
And how is it to deal with the auction house directly?
Honestly, it's been great because the auction houses, Christie's in particular, obviously, I think they've moved very quickly and understand the potential here and sort of the new ways in which collectors and artists are engaging with each other. And I think they recognize this as being a real huge opportunity to sort of help facilitate that. So honestly, the way that I worked with Christie's, I feel like would be somewhat similar to how you would work with a museum, in which they had somebody write a text about it. They really tried to help me sort of display the work in the best light possible. They advertise where they put up banners. Like they really kind of, you know, made this feel like an exhibition of the work, obviously with the sales attached, but it was very, very great working with them. They really understood it and sort of like, you know, care about showing the work in the best light possible, because obviously they want to sell it for a shitload of money. So they're very much incentivized to kind of really help add context and you know, help people fully understand what this work is.
And is there an intermediary between Christie's and you?
No, I was working directly with Christie's, directly with people who are pretty high up at the company, and they again were just honestly great to work with.
And you will keep on with them?
I think I will probably do this. I don't know if it's going to be like every year, but yeah, honestly, it seems like a good way to sort of like show a new piece of work, because my other options were, I guess, show it through a gallery or something like that. Again, you show it through a gallery, they're taking 50% of the money, and they don't quite have the same amount of sort of reach as something like this.
And how much is taking Christie's?
They took, I think it's confidential, but far less than 50%. I can tell you that. Far less. Yeah, a fraction of that.
And there's also Sotheby's and Phillips, right?
Yeah, I have not worked with them yet. I've talked to Sotheby's. I'm sure we'll do something in the future, but yeah, I think I think you're going to see more that Christie's and Sotheby's and all these places are going to position themselves as places for artists to sell primary new work, which is very different. But I think you're going to see more and more of that moving forward.
And what do you think about classical art? Are you interested? Did you study that or not at all? You went to the auction, right?
Let me show you the book I just bought last night. I just bought this last night. Where's that? Oh. One sec. I just bought this last night.
Ooh.
It's a big one. It's thick.
That's cool. You ought
yeah.
But you ought to come to Paris to see them in real.
I know. We were actually there like 2 years ago, right before COVID, and we didn't get a chance to go. And I was just like, oh, because we were only there for a couple days. And the kids, I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. They'd probably last about 20 minutes in there, maybe. So I didn't get a chance to go, but yeah, honestly, the next chance I have, I will absolutely go. Honestly, I really love like older paintings. Like I could look at them for hours, because it's like, to me, it's like, it's probably the way you would look at some of the stuff I do, where you have no idea how it's done. Like that's how I look at like those older paintings, because it's just like mind blowing to me that somebody can like paint light and things that realistically. And so it's like I could, especially like older sort of like very detailed huge paintings, I honestly love those so much. I actually find those much more interesting than a lot of sort of like modern art, just because it's sort of like you can't fake that. Like you can see it, and it's sort of like there's no way around it. That just took an insane amount of time and effort to make, like period. Like there's no like shortcut to like those paintings. I have no like formal training in like art, and I didn't go to art school. That's where it's sort of like I've never heard of the pictures in this book. Like I don't know, like honestly, I don't think I'd ever even heard of Christie's before all this stuff.
What do you think? What's your feeling about the amount of money that your work was sold for?
It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. honestly, it's one of these things where it's like, it's out of my control. It is what it is. And all I can do is sort of continue to focus on the work, and the market piece of it will be what it is.
And do you think that you have some competitors as talented as you in this creation mix between NFT and physical art?
There's people, I honestly wish I had more competitors. And I think you will see more people who are mixing the two in interesting ways, because I think we're just at the beginning of this. But I would like to see more people sort of diving into that. But it seems like most people right now, at least, are very much either in the digital art space or they're in the physical world. And there's not that much overlap between the two. But I do not think that will be the case in the future. I think you will see more and more things that bring digital art into people's homes in very, very interesting ways. Like, I feel like in the future, 100 years from now, we will have all kinds of crazy art in our houses that feels very digital, feels very alive. And that's the things that I'm interested in making it. I'm interested in making art that feels like it's 100 years in the future. It doesn't feel like it's 2021. I want to make something that feels like it's 221.
And how can you do that?
I don't know, by trying to do that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, by just trying to like predict what art is going to, I mean, I don't know, obviously, nobody knows, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to think of not what looks like interesting art for today. I'm trying to think of what is going to art look like 100 years from now.
And are you working on your new piece already?
Oh, we've got tons of stuff. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of things in the sort of like works, not just one thing. There's a lot of things.
So the money is for that?
Yes, that's what the money is for. Honestly, you know, buying a crazy car or crazy house or whatever, like that stuff is not interesting to me, because anybody with money can do that. You can just go buy a crazy house, you can go buy whatever, like, so it's not really challenging. Versus this other stuff it's very challenging, because I have to make it. I have to do it. Nobody's going to do it for me. I have to, you know, use that money to make something that nobody's ever seen before. And so that's what I'm trying to do with it.
And your wife don't complain?
She wants a better house, I'll say
of
that.
Course.
We'll get a crazy house, I'm sure, at some point, but again, sort of, she is, because we didn't come from money, and sort of she also sort of like recognizes that this is like a long game, and I've already been doing this 20 years, and she's been with me for 15 of that. She's been with me since a year. We started dating a year before I started the Everydays, and so she's been there the whole time. And so she's seen it when nobody gave any shit about what I was doing.
So she understands what is NFT?
Oh yeah. She understands 100%. 100%. And she's been helping a lot. Like, she's also working her ass off on accounting and lawyers and all kinds of crazy shit. Like, she's very much like in it, helping a lot.
So I'm focusing on art. And when I asked you the question about the NFT art market, you answered about NFT in general. So the NFT art market, what's your feeling about that? Isn't there an over excitement, a bubble mixing a lot of good things and a lot of really not interesting things? Not a lot of good things, a lot of bad things and few good things?
Yes, 100%. People will lose a lot of money in the art market on things that they're very excited about right now, but they're from artists who are like either brand new or artists who like nobody knows of and have no history and have had no impact on society or how we look at things. And just like with traditional art, people they get all jacked up on, this is the new painter that everybody loves. And then 3 years later, everybody kind of okay, I guess it's not that interesting. And that doesn't hold value. There is a lot of people who will lose money on art and NFTs 100% because they're not thinking about like, is this an artist that people are going to care about in 20 years? And if it's not, then it will go to zero, period. That is true of traditional art. That is true of NFT art.
And but when will be the collapse?
That's a good question. I actually am not sure that there will necessarily be a very hard collapse. Maybe there will, but I think what is going to happen is people will hold these things, and then in the future they'll go to sell them, and then it'll be like, nobody wants this, and then it will just be like, it'll end up in a garage sale for a nickel. Like that happens to art. Most art ends up literally in the garbage.
Do you imagine the future as a dystopian future?
I do not. I think the future is going to be very weird. I think it's going to get weirder and weirder. I don't think it's necessarily going to be good or bad, but I think the things that we I think we will look at how life would be in 100 years as very weird, because I think there's a lot of technologies that are converging very quickly in ways that people don't expect, and it produces weird results. And honestly, I think the NFT thing is one of them. I did not see this coming. I was making this art for 20 years, just like because I wanted to, because I love to, and people enjoyed looking at it, but I wasn't thinking about it in this way. And so I think this is sort of one of those anomalies. And I think you're going to continue to see more and more anomalies as technologies progress faster and faster, and they combine in ways that we couldn't possibly predict.
So, but what else do you imagine as weird as what you say?
I honestly think like Donald Trump becoming president is a symptom of that. This person who probably never should have been president, and like this weird thing happened where he became president because of an unaffected consequence of social media and things like that. I think there's just going to be like more things like that where just strange things happen, and they're sort of like, and then we kind of look back and you're like, oh yeah, okay, that's because that technology combined with that technology, and now we have this. And I just think things like that will continue to happen quicker and quicker. And
do you have some advisor or some mentor in this field? Like who?
I don't know if they'd necessarily want me to say their names, but I have people who are very connected in the traditional arts world that have been sort of like helping advise me, because all of this is sort of like very new to me in terms of collectors, and now talking to museums and galleries. And so I definitely appreciate these people's advice, and I have like 3 or 4 people now.
And how can you know that they are good or bad?
I don't know. And so I'm learning. And I'm learning the times where it's like, well, you were wrong on that. I don't know. And so I don't just believe the things that people are telling me just blindly. So I'm figuring out who knows what they're talking about and who's just trying to make a buck off of me.
It's complicated. So
okay. Awesome. Yeah. Well, that'd be great to try and find a time to connect. I'll send you some info on that talk too.
Yeah, that's interesting.
To come on Wednesday morning.
Okay, super. Merci, monsieur.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate you taking the time to talk here. It was great.
No, very interesting. Thank you.